New York City once was this place that a lot of people found to be desirable. Not myself, but others did, especially outsiders. They looked at it as if it represented America, it represented commerce, it represented all the things that they found to be right with this country in America. Big hub, financial hub, especially. And now it does appear that Zoran Mamdani is going to become the next mayor, and he's a literal communist. And I want to talk about the implications there. Hadn't had a chance to really discuss it in detail because I do have a lot of thoughts about it. But make no mistake, all you have to do is really go to this guy's Twitter, recent as well as those of the past, and you can see what he is. It's pretty open about that. He quotes Marx and such, no issues doing that. He doesn't. But here's a tweet right here. He talks about Cuomo. He says he refuses to tax the rich. He's refusing to let workers enjoy the wealth they created. Again, he's a communist. When he says low taxes foster a business friendly environment, he means an environment where it's easy for bosses to steal from workers. Taxation isn't theft, capitalism is. Well, I obviously take great exception to it, but I do want you to pay attention to what he's saying. Cuomo, who by every metric is a leftist, he's more closely aligned to Mamdani than he is to myself, like an anarcho capitalist, but to him and the many that think like him, anybody to the right of Stalin is basically this pro uber capitalist person. There's also a video that I want to take a look at. But you have this guy talking. And again, I'm not one of those that likes to police people's speech and like talk about like the type of rhetoric or whatever that they like to use. I more so want to speak about what they're saying. And when they just flat out admit their positions and where they're coming from, I think it's very, very important that you listen. Okay. Sure, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, a lot of lies. But this is a guy that is proud of what he is and what he believes in. But let's take a listen real quick.
Is that every single person should have housing. And I think faced with these two options, the system has hundreds of thousands of people unhoused, right? For what? And if there was any system that could guarantee each person housing, whether you call it the abolition of private property or you call it, just a statewide housing guarantee, it is preferable to what is going on
Abolition of
right
private property.
now. And I
Okay.
think that people try and play like gotcha games about these kinds of things, and it's like, look, I care more about whether somebody has a home.
And all that, and that's what communists do, right? They get to, or they attempt to rather, lead with their moronic ideas that they just care about the people. Never mind their policy of economic illiteracy. Historically, you look at communism. Doesn't matter where it has ever been implemented. Doesn't matter whether it's Cambodia and Pol Pot, Zedong, Mao, or what have you, North Korea. Doesn't matter. Obviously, Russia. Following it is usually mass murders, genocide, famines, all of the things that you look at in recent modern history. Communism, governments in general, but especially governments that have been advocates of communism and say that they're doing things in the name of communism, is responsible for quite literally several millions of people. Not this quasi sort of way that communists like to try to attribute to capitalism. No, we're talking like literal deaths, people being killed oft. Now, this is a serious thing that people need to be honest about. The fact that a guy like this, and I would look, yeah, I'm a libertarian, but if there is a deportable offense advocating communism, which is advocating for acts of aggression upon your neighbors, you can easily make the argument that that's the ethical, moral position to get them up out of there and physically remove them from everybody else that wants peace and somewhat prosperity. Okay. But again, what we need to talk about is just how easy it is for a guy like this, who's an admitted socialist, and you've seen this over and by the way, socialism, communism, you're gonna get those that try to split those hairs as they have done over the years. But you need to understand, it is more a recent phenomena that those terms they tried to split those. Historically speaking, they were used interchangeably anyway. nonetheless, whether it be young people, have people even my age, because they look at the general landscape and anybody that can come and promise them the world, like this just utopian sort of view of how I just want everybody in housing. It doesn't address why housing is the way that it is, which is often due to government involvement, especially in the grant and loan industries, whether it be with money not going as far as it needs to for people to be able to thrive, right? But this pipe dream, people look at homelessness, and this is where people get it wrong, including some folks on the quote unquote right. They look at homelessness often as this thing that it can be cured by, like, every person is homeless is like in this box and they fit this particular mold. And it does not address the different types of people as well as the different types of circumstances as to why someone could not be in a home. Okay. And I'm talking just on the individual level. I'm not talking about like even from an external deal. Like, I've had people, even kinfolk, that we raised, they just can't get right? Gambled their money away, whatever it may be, put themselves in a position, and it was their action. It wasn't the big bad boogeyman trying to keep them unhoused or something of that nature. So but they lead with that, right? They lead with, don't you want everybody to be housed? Don't you want everybody to be fed? Don't you want the poor people to eat? All these different things. And this is how they can convince large groups of people to adopt their economically illiterate positions that, again, have been attributed to so many deaths over the course of modern human history. They can get away with that because people are looking, and yes, folks are struggling. I've made this argument for a very long time. It's not either taxation, it's death. Obviously, I believe in that. It's more accurately putting it, it's extortion. Theft by way of extortion, and saying that capitalism somehow robs the quote unquote workers. This is again a guy that doesn't know quite much about how businesses work. They don't understand the general concept of risk or any of that. And it's the stuff that I've discussed over videos over the last 15 years. Not going to go into that. What I want to talk about for this video more so is I need the people on the economic right. And the reason why I use that term is because folks call themselves whatever: libertarian, conservative, like liberty conservative, minarchist, and whatever you call yourself. If you believe in private property rights, if you uphold that to be true, this is who I'm talking about when I discuss the economic right. I don't care how much you dislike I use that term. Because if I say all the people that are of this ilk and I label them, folks will just get mad at that. Nonetheless, you need to get right. I think especially those that are politicians that claim to be aligned with the right often adopt leftist positions anyway, especially leftist positions of 10 years ago. But the fact that you've been so soft, so willing to compromise with the left on so many different issues, which does nothing but muddy the waters. So when something bad does happen, they attribute it to you. And because you're not full force going after, getting rid of the taxation, getting rid of the regulatory bodies that really prevent entrepreneurship, prevent people from having some level of self sufficiency. They don't work nearly hard, especially at the federal level. They don't work nearly as hard as what they need to. They're very soft. Everything has to be a compromise. Everything is, well, we can't do this now. We can't address the spending efforts because of this reason and that reason. And we got to compromise. Got to kick the can down the road. The can get kicked down the road. And then it's time to address it again. Nothing happens. And here we are yet again. And while people are suffering and don't know any better, let's be honest. Like, this is why, come on, man, it's democracy. It is the literal God that failed. It's one of the worst political positions, or rather political setups, right, that you can have. I know that's going to be controversial among some of you guys because everybody conflates, unfortunately, democracy with freedom when it's anything but. This idea that just because a bunch of people, let's say 50% of people voted for a said thing, that makes it just, righteous, or free is nonsensical. When you break it down at that fundamental level, I don't care what your teachers and their academics said, it doesn't make any sense. Yes, majority rule can be and has been bad. It's not freedom. Guys, for the love of God, when you see someone about to take over one of your major cities, telling you what they are, and folks are just willingly supporting it, you have a lot of work to do. Of course, I don't want to go on a spiel on this video talking about how people need to get back culturally involved so we can meet people where they're at. Seeing all this right now, you got the economic right fighting amongst each other, can't get out of each other's way, and you have a literal communist about to take over one of your major cities. And if you think they're going to stop there, you're out of your mind. They are convincing people that socialism is a good thing. They are convincing people that this is something that folks not only should advocate, should be implementing. And obviously, that's what makes communism in that sense, and that they're basically forced. I don't want to hear this whole, they look at it maybe as if it's voluntary. It's not. You need to understand what you are up against, and it's not funny. We might smile, and that's cope. When you see me smiling, even in this video, a lot of that stuff is cope because I'm like, damn, we really are here. The pool of people seems to grow that think communism, of all things, the one of the most abhorrent economic of political philosophies that exist. And there are folks that think it's a good thing, can run on that as a core part of their platform and win. We have work to do.